The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jameson Rabbit, and this week I'm so happy to be joined by a guy, you know him, you love him. If you go to the Palace Theater, you're going to run into him. It's Zennon Schmitz.
Thank you for having me back.
Welcome back. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, I love doing this show, so I'm happy to do one final hurrah.
Yep, this is it. This is the final hurrah. Each time I have someone on now, it's the final hurrah. And you are on one of the final 5 episodes. This is episode 518 out of 522. It's fun, though. So last time we had you on, we were talking about Godzilla.
Yep.
Some things stay the same. We have you back to finish the Godzilla, I guess, the story of Godzilla as we have in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Had a couple of them. But first, let's get into what else we have on the marquee this week. I'm going to get us started with the newest A24 film. It is called Love Lies Bleeding, from director Rose Glass, who we last saw with her film Saint Maud, which was a phenomenal film, I thought. Love Lies Bleeding is a very sweaty, very horny movie. Stars Kristen Stewart as Lou. Lou is a gym employee in a small town in New Mexico. I think around 1988 it's set in. She's lonely. She's trying to quit smoking with the help of those horrible self-help tapes. She keeps mostly to herself until one night when a drifter shows up in her gym. It's a gal who's been hitchhiking and ended up in this town, named Jackie, played by Katie O'Brien. Jackie is trying to be a competitive bodybuilder, and Lou is immediately drawn to her and offers her something to help, some steroids that she happens to have. It's a bit of an odd meet cute, but it turns passionate immediately, and quickly Lou and Jackie become an item, with Lou supporting Jackie's dream of becoming that champion bodybuilder. Also in town are Lou's dad, Lou Sr., played by Ed Harris, who's the powerful rich guy in town. Ed Harris featuring the worst head of hair in film. He seems dangerous right away, like he has a real dark past. He loves guns and bugs. He's a gun supplier who owns the local shooting club, where he also employs his son-in-law, JJ, played by Dave Franco, who's just an awful guy. He's someone that Lou cannot stand for several reasons. JJ is a wife beater, and Kristen Stewart's Lou wants him dead for what he does to her sister Beth. And Dave Franco, plays him as a real detestable scumbag pretty easily. And I don't want to spoil a lot of the plot in this movie, because there's some weird things that happen in here, but this film becomes a drugs and murder film where roid rages are real scary and family secrets lead to holes in the desert. And to me, it felt a lot like a wonderful mix of true romance mixed with Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, mixed with the Oliver Stone film U-Turn, and some Fargo maybe mixed in, and ends in classic A24 fashion, as you really wonder what you just saw. I thought the performance was great in this. I really enjoyed this movie. Curious what you thought of Love Lies Bleeding.
Well, I have worked very hard among my peers to be recognized as one of the girls, and this is going to completely destroy my credibility.
Uh-oh.
I went in not knowing anything about this movie other than the fact that it starred Kristen Stewart, it was A24, and that everyone was raving about how sexy it is.
Very sexy. She said, I'm going to make the most lesbian movie ever.
Yeah, and I didn't really care for it.
Really?
I think this might be the most inherently least sexy movie I've ever seen, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. There are things I liked about it. Mm-hmm. Like, I really like when there's like these flashback scenes that are presented in this very harsh red lighting.
Yeah.
And that's such a cool stylistic choice, and you really kind of get this feel of how dark and gritty the past is just through the visuals alone.
Sure.
But the movie has some massive tonal inconsistencies that were very hard for me to look past.
Okay.
A big one being, as you said, ending in A24 fashion. It didn't fit.
That came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and the rest of the movie is so grimy and dirty and just so real feeling, So when you get these fantastical elements, it doesn't fit properly. And I think a big reason is because there is one other scene about midway through the movie where we do get some fantastical elements, but we get a clear shift. The camera pans around, the color grading switches, and everyone nearby doesn't react to it. We're seeing someone's own perspective.
Yep, absolutely.
But the other scene with fantastical elements, the other characters do react.
That's reality.
There's no shift in perspective. We're just expected to believe, yep, this is really happening.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I can understand that. I thought, look, Kristen Stewart is much maligned by a lot of people. I think she's really good. I really have enjoyed her in a lot of her most recent performances. Personal Shopper, Diana, a lot of these. I thought she was good, even if she is in this one really digging deep into her awkward tendencies.
Yeah.
Right? She's really playing into that. Katie O'Brien, someone who I've never seen before as Jackie, I thought she really stood out and kind of leapt off the screen in many ways.
She was, for me, the star of the show.
Yeah.
I mean, Kristen Stewart was great. There were a few times where it seemed like she didn't really know where she was, per se.
I would agree.
But Katie O'Brien really kind of disappeared into the role.
Yeah.
So I thought she did fantastic.
Film has a lot like St. Maud did, Rose Glass's last film, has some body horror in it, a lot of testosterone. And I don't know, I found myself really sinking it. Look, I am a stan for all A24 things, and I have been accused of acquitting them in some mediocre movies.
Same.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I understand that going in, and that I'm like already rooting for this movie. But I found myself really enjoying it. And I completely understand and mostly agree with a lot of your sentiments on that, but it's still, I found myself just enamored with a lot of this movie. I love Ed Harris, and he always plays a guy who can unnerve me quickly.
Yeah.
And he did that really wonderfully here. I'm like, I don't like this guy.
You know, I thought he was great until you really start to think about his character.
Yeah.
His backstory is kind of a closed loop, and there's no entry point. You start to put a little too much thought into it, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Break down. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, good point. All right, well, I think we're going to disagree on scores on this. What did you end up giving Love Lies Bleeding?
I gave it 2 stars. I know that's not going to be a popular opinion. I know I'm kind of on the wrong side of history here, but honestly, just watch A History of Violence instead. It's basically the same movie, but Ed Harris is the lead in that one instead of being a supporting character. And I don't know. I think it's just this, but better.
History of Violence is dang near a perfect movie.
Yeah,
I just rewatched it this past fall. Love that movie. And I enjoyed this movie. I ended up giving this movie a 4-star score. Look at that. Yeah, it's enjoyable. A part of me wants to defend Kristen Stewart, too, because there's so many horrible trolls in the world that just go after her for the Twilight movies still.
I agree, yeah.
And I'm like, that's like when people 10 years after Titanic were still going after Leonardo DiCaprio as the Titanic guy.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he's so much more than this. All right, speaking of big monsters, what do we have next, sir?
From director Adam Wingard comes the newest installment in the legendary MonsterVerse, Godzilla x Kong, Godzilla Kong, The New Empire. Following the events of Godzilla vs. Kong, Kong has established his territory deep in Hollow Earth, searching for more apes, while Godzilla stays on the surface, protecting the world from any monsters that do happen to show up. There seems to be a mutual agreement between the two to stay out of each other's territories. Meanwhile, Eileen, played by Rebecca Hall, continues to raise her adopted daughter, Jaya, or is it Gia?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't remember.
One of the two.
Yeah.
She's played by Kaylee Hoddle, who is the last surviving member of the Iwi tribe on Skull Island. A signal from Hollow Earth causes Gia to have these visions that match radar scans at Monarch's base. So Eileen goes to the only person who potentially knows more about this than she does, Bernie, returning Brian Tyree Henry from Godzilla vs. Kong. Me too. He's so great. He's still hosting his podcast about the big monsters, and he's still kind of off his rocker a little bit, but the members of Monarch set out to Hollow Earth to find this signal, but they aren't quite prepared for what they find. Kong in Hollow Earth has discovered an empire of apes led by the evil Scar King. Wildly outnumbered, Kong's only choice is to reignite an old rivalry and return to the surface in search for help.
Yeah, I believe there was a scene in here where Kong and Godzilla both discovered that each of their mothers' name was Martha, and then they teamed up.
Something like that, yeah.
What I learned in this movie is, first off, King Kong loves taking showers. He loves long walks, and that he needs a Hollow Earth dentist, and that he gets a little. He's kind of like the Bumble in Rudolph. He just needs Hermie to come and fix his tooth, and then he's less grumpy. There's a lot in here. Like Scar King, as a villain, I think is a weak villain.
I agree.
I mean, and then after all the events of the previous one, and we're fighting Mecha Godzilla and all this, and then this one is just like a bad Kong that we're fighting. And
smaller.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then like a ice-breathing Godzilla, and it just felt like, I don't know.
That
kind
being
of felt
said,
like a mess to me.
That being said, I actually did like Shimo, the ice-breathing Titan, a lot. I discovered after the fact that was actually from a Heisei era Godzilla movie that was unused.
Oh, interesting.
And Adam Wingard thought that he saw some of the test footage, thought it was cool. And
That's
was
smart. I like that.
Yeah, I thought
That's
that
cool,
was
digging into the history.
There's a lot of fun little surprises here for kaiju fans. Obviously, we're not going to spoil anything, but yeah, I think Shimo was definitely the coolest part of the movie.
Here's my thing with this MonsterVerse as they've presented to us since the first Godzilla movie. The story in these films, the human elements are routinely pretty awful, I think.
I would agree.
And this, I think, it's the worst part of these films. I dislike, it's horrible to say, I dislike the daughter, the whole Kong Whisperer angle of her, the mystical, I don't like that. I love Brian Tyree Henry. He should be the lead human element, I feel like, because he has the most
lead in everything.
Yes, because has the most charisma.
Yes,
he's great. Dan Stevens is Trapper, who's like the I'll do everything guy here, who goes in, he's fixes the tooth. He has you see in the trailers, he has the big mechanical fist for Kong when he needs it. Blah, blah. Every time he jumps into the action, he gets this classic rock drop as he's swinging into something or flying into somewhere. But I feel like this movie is really trying, but it's a mess. And like any monster movie, I want big action, and this one delivers more creatures, more digital effects, more mayhem, both on top and inside Earth. And if you want, you can watch it in 3D. But man, I don't know. It felt like, especially as we got towards the end, it felt like a big tag team match. Titan rules.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I was really necessarily there. It was almost comedically over the top at points for me.
I would agree, but I mean, in comparison to the first half, which is so boring.
Yes. Very.
The second half is I get it. I get why it's connecting with people, because that second half is a lot of fun.
It felt to me like a Fast and the Furious film, like a mid-level Fast and the Furious film in the second half of this movie, where now we're just running and there's big effects and physics don't matter anymore. But at least I'm not dealing with Rebecca Hall and her daughter as much anymore. But unfortunately, Bernie went to the background in the second half of the movie. I don't know. I enjoyed the last one, Godzilla vs. Kong. I enjoyed that one. I love Kong Skull Island.
That's very good, yes.
I didn't necessarily... there was another...
There was King of the Monsters.
Didn't like King of the Monsters.
Okay, I actually quite like that one.
Yeah?
There's a lot of fan service that works for me.
I know there is. I know.
I'm just going to be honest. And the first one, the Gareth Edwards one from 2014, that's actually probably my favorite of the Legendary MonsterVerse. I really like how everything... It reminds me of Pacific Rim, right? The way that it's all shot very practically. There's this real sense of scale. And King of the Monsters has a pretty good sense of scale, too. That is missing here.
Yeah.
Horrifically.
Right.
Everything changed. There are some scenes where Godzilla is running through a city and buildings are coming up to his knee. Yeah. And there's other scenes where they're towering over him. There's no sense of scale.
I noticed that too as I'm watching. I'm like, well, wait a minute. That's one of the things you have to really lock in. How big is our creature?
Yeah.
Right? And in the good ones, I mean, this wasn't helped by me having rewatched Godzilla -1 multiple times over the last 6 months.
Right.
And that has an amazing human story that has Godzilla in it, right? And so that's the opposite of this. But that also locks in the scale, I felt like.
Yes.
Every time they know exactly how big this monster is.
And, just comparing those two, it's kind of unfair. It's two completely different studios. It's completely different But like it's the two most recent Godzilla movies.
Right.
They released in less than
And
a
people
year.
were confused when that one came out because there were people at the movie.
Yeah.
When I went to see that one that thought they were bringing their kids, they thought they were
Yep.
seeing this one.
Yeah.
So it is confusing in the marketplace for some people.
Absolutely. But like comparing the two, where Godzilla -1 had a budget of like 10 to 15 million, and this one had a budget of 135 million, and like all I'm saying is I don't think this one's even going to get nominated for an Oscar, let alone win for Best Visual Effects.
No. Like I said, I walked out of this one feeling like it was a mid-level Fast and Furious film where I kind of want everyone to die. That's how I feel about those movies. I don't care about anybody. I just want them all to die. But I know you are my Godzilla guy, so I trust your opinions on these things. You are much more knowledgeable about the giant monsters of the universe than I am. So I want to hear your score for Godzilla X Kong. It's a title I don't love either.
Yeah, I just refer to it as GXK.
I like this. Okay. What do you end up giving this film?
I gave it a 3.5. I thought it was fun for the second half. The fan service in the second half works for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think the new design for Kong is really cool. I like how he's very much inspired by Kratos from the new God of War games. Not only does he kind of take a companion in Zuko, the little monkey, but also he is gray and he has a beard.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the coolest looking Kong we've seen so far.
I will agree with that. I really like the design of Kong. And I took my daughter to see this. We went and saw it in 3D, which was her choice, not mine. But I hate wearing glasses over glasses. And every time his little friend Diddy Kong showed up, my daughter was like, "Ooh!"
I actually hated Zuko.
Yeah?
That little monkey freaked me out. I don't know. Something about his design did not sit right with me.
Yeah?
And he just kind of irked me. Reminded me a lot of Manila from Son of Godzilla.
Okay.
The little Godzilla
Yeah.
that just kind of follows him around and is nothing but a nuisance. But I do like when Kong uses him as nunchucks.
That is true.
That's fun.
That's pretty cool. That's a great idea. So you gave it 3 to 5. I was right down the middle. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. I didn't dislike it. I didn't love it. It was fine. It was interesting. And so that's Godzilla Kong. The last film we have on the marquee this week is the newest film from directors Cameron and Colin Cairns. It is Late Night with the Devil, starring David Dastmalchian as Jack Delroy. This is a film that is set in the 1970s, and we are given some history told through narration and archival footage about a late-night talk show called Night Owls, which debuts, finding success and a growing audience for his host and star, Jack Delroy, who also faces speculation amid his rise to fame, speculation about his wife and about his association with a secretive men-only club called The Grove, which counts among its members many of the powerful elite of the time. But all Jack is concerned with is taking down Johnny Carson in the late-night ratings, desperate to surpass The Tonight Show. And on his ascent, he loses his wife, he takes a hiatus, and upon returning to the airwaves to less success and the real possibility of having Night Owls canceled, he decides to shoot a show on Halloween of 1977. And what we are then shown, the rest of this movie, is the master tape from this fateful Halloween episode that, quote-unquote, shocked the nation, as Jack Delroy, trying to save his career by spiking ratings, is witness to a series of guests who bring about events that may or may not be what they seem. And he first welcomes on a medium named Christu, who performs the usual carny sideshow of psychic routine, until something seemingly very real happens to him and unnerves everyone in the studio. He is followed by a skeptic. Skeptic goes by Carmichael Haig, played by Ian Bliss. He's similar to the famous skeptic and debunker James Randi, who would show up on The Tonight Show in the 1970s, who loved debunking parapsychology. And lastly, he has on a psychiatrist and author of Conversations with the Devil. This is June Ross Mitchell, played by Laura Gordon. She has on her patient Lily, a young girl, played by Ingrid Torelli, who is a young girl who is said to be possessed. And Lily's a wonderful, eerie character, I thought, played as a sweet, innocent, kind of doe-eyed girl, who then is terrifying as she claims to invite Abraxas into the studio. And as we watch this episode going in and out of commercial breaks and stranger things happening in that small studio. The tension begins to build, and Jack's desperation gives way to real curiosity and concern as things begin to spin out of control. And I mean, this basically becomes a possession film set amidst the 1970s late night talk show, and I think that's brilliant. And I was completely drawn in by this movie. I mean, for many reasons, this really tapped into me. I love that era of late night talk shows. I still, to this day, at night, watch old episodes of The Tonight Show from the 1970s and 80s, where people would show up drunk, and anything could happen on live TV. I love it. I love old talk shows of this era. I also love Larry Sanders Show, where you get to go behind the scenes of a late night talk show, and you got some of this as we're going back and seeing what's happening during the commercial breaks of all of this, and just the intimacy of late night TV of this bygone era, where you're just sitting up alone and anything can happen in the dark. And I was really, really drawn in by this movie.
Me too.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was like so in it. There were several times in the theater where my heart was racing and I had to like remind myself to breathe. I was
that's a mark of a good one.
Yeah, I was in it, man. It's been a while since I've been that drawn in. It's probably not a great thing to admit, but I was really sleepy going into the movie. I was kind of dozing on the ride to the theater.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, walking out, I was so awake. Like I was so excited. I literally like called like a group of my friends on the way home. I had my phone like in my coat pocket while I was driving. I was like, guys, you got to see this movie. This is amazing.
I really love it. It uses the fakeness of the upbeat host and the wisecracking sidekick and all that, and the applause sign in the audience. And they use these things to really build on this creepy horror where, these facades are pushed away, and all of a sudden, like, wait a minute. This might be real.
Yeah.
This is real creepy. And I loved seeing David Dastmalchian get this lead role because I think he is a really underrated character actor who plays really creepy characters usually.
I agree.
People you don't trust, real scary guys. And I think he has real charisma, and I like seeing him get this chance. And, it's the story of a man who may have sold his soul to the devil for success. We've seen this play out 1,000 times. Normally it doesn't work. Here's the other thing. Going into this, I knew little bits and pieces about it.
Sure.
I hate found footage films.
Okay.
At least my least favorite genre is found footage film.
Interesting.
Yes. And I loved this movie.
Yeah.
And I think that they did it really smartly in going in and out of commercial break. And one of the things I normally nitpick is, okay, if you're going to do found footage, then you can't show me anything that wouldn't be on that found footage, right?
Right, I agree.
Then you break your own rules. And this one, they break those rules, but they explain to you there's also some never shown footage from behind the scenes as it's happening. Like, okay, I'm glad you closed that loophole because that would have destroyed this movie to me.
Every time that they do something that could break your suspension of disbelief, they have a reason for it earlier on in the movie.
Right.
So everything feels like it belongs. Everything fits.
Yep.
Which I really like.
Yeah, I found myself really. It's hard. I was like you, kind of white knuckling it for a while, like really tense. Like, oh man! But I was also found myself like drifting back into this nostalgia of this love of late night TV of that era. And I don't know, it worked really well for me. It's a movie that really smartly done. Didn't need big special effects.
No, some of them were a little campy at times too.
I think purposely though.
I was gonna say, but I think it fits. It really fits the tone and the overall aesthetic of the movie. I think the one thing that doesn't fit the tone and aesthetic of the movie is also kind of the elephant in the room with this movie, the AI-generated images that are used when they go to
it has been the big argument
break.
with this movie recently.
Yeah, and I really liked this movie. I want to give it a pass on that because of the fact that everything else about it worked for me. But it feels like a dangerous, slippery slope, doesn't it?
So here's the thing. They've already said that for the eventual home video release, whatever, streaming release, whatever, they're replacing those.
Really?
Yes. I was reading about this yesterday, that they are addressing this. Yes. They said, okay, we get it. Yes.
Nice.
Part of it was budgetary. You know?
I mean, and I kind of figured that was the case. It's clearly a low budget.
But now that
movie.
this is making money and getting word of mouth, they said, when you see this, when you go and rent this, you go and buy this, those will be different.
Oh, and you better believe when this comes out on Blu-ray, I'm buying it right away.
Absolutely. I agree with you. All right, we're both raving about this movie. What did you end up giving Late Night with the Devil?
Honestly, this was my favorite movie of the year so far. For me, this was an easy 5 stars.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I loved everything about it. I thought David Dastmalchian was perfect in the lead role. He was very kind of a powerhouse performance of dual roles when he's on camera and when he's not.
Yeah.
And he's just so good in it. But also, Reese Autry, I think is his name, who plays Gus.
Yes, the sidekick.
The sidekick,
Yeah.
the Guillermo to the Jimmy Kimmel.
Right.
He was fantastic. His performance was very nuanced in the way he reacted to certain situations. And I think he deserves some praise for this, too, because he's really, I looked through his filmography, he's been in so little.
Yeah.
He's been in, like, a couple short films and a TV show and mostly stage plays and stuff. But like,
Yeah, he was great.
He
I
killed
hope
it.
this launches David Dastmalchian into a bigger career than just that weird guy that's the 5th lead in a movie.
I agree.
I hope this gives him more
Him
cred.
and Brian Tyree Henry, put them as the leads in every
I'll
movie
watch
going
those.
forward.
I'll watch that movie. A buddy cop movie with those two.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a little tougher judge. I rate my movies on the year. This was my second favorite movie we are at the quarter mark of the year, 3 months in. This was my second favorite movie behind Dune 2. Man, I give it a tough score. I give it 4 stars. I feel like I want to give it 4.5, but I gave it 4 when I gave it. So, great movie. Go see it. Go see it in the theaters right now. Support it. It's a film that you haven't seen before. All right, let's take a look ahead at what is coming soon the weekend of April 12th. We have a few films. The first one is Civil War, the newest film from the great Alex Garland about a dystopian future America, split along political lines, and the people that are caught up in this stars Nick Offerman as the president, Kirsten Dunst, Jesse Plemons, among others. We also have Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, the remake of the 1991 Christina Applegate classic comedy, this time starring Jermaine Fowler, June Squibb, and Simone Joy Jones. I love that original. And then lastly in theaters, The Long Game, an inspirational sports film about 5 Mexican-American caddies in the 1950s who create their own golf course so they could learn how to play. Stars Dennis Quaid, Jay Hernandez, Cheech Marin, amongst many others. Those are the films of April the 12th. I want to take a moment, though, to thank a couple people. First off, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for coming on the show. I love debating movies with you here in the theater, on Letterboxd. I respect your opinion on movies and your perspective on movies. And I know you are an aspiring filmmaker, and I am rooting for you.
Oh, thank you.
And hopefully the next time you see this guy, we're talking about, it won't be me, but somebody will be talking about your movie. And I've just really enjoyed having you on here.
It's been such an honor and a pleasure, truly. This has been so much fun, and I've looked forward to it every single time.
I love it. Making new friends here is what we're doing. And lastly, I want to thank James Weingard, who, if you follow me on social media, just wrote a wonderful little article about me and Real Reviews, the show, which he posted onto the Wisconsin Community Media for all of those in the Wisconsin Community Media. It was a really sweet article. So thank you, James, for that. It kind of blew me away. I really appreciate that. Speaking of thank yous, I want to thank our sponsor, Marcus Theaters, The Palace, here in Sun Prairie. You know a little something about that place.
Oh, yeah.
The Palace is it's my favorite place to watch movies. It's a dream lounger. I feel like I am perfectly contoured to the seats in especially J13 in some of the theaters. Like, that's my jam. Love it. Love a dream lounger. And we're entering into now in the second quarter of the movie season, and we're gonna start getting some big movies coming out soon. And boy, you're gonna catch me at the box office checking out those films for sure. And say hi to Zennon when you're there. Next week, I am going to be talking about such films as Monkey Man, the streaming film Scoop. I'll also be doing some recap of the Wisconsin Film Festival films, because the Wisconsin Film Festival starts today as of this recording, April 4th, and extends all the way out through April 11th. So if you're watching this, it's not too late. You can get tickets to watch. I think we have 150 films showing at the Wisconsin Film Festival all over Madison. Check it out. And I'll be there, so you can come say hi to me. But next week, I'll be talking about some of the films that I watched during the Film Fest. And I'll be joined by Steve Sabaki, because he's also going to attend some of these films. And we'll tell you what we liked, what we didn't like, what we saw. It's going to be a good time. So make sure to stay tuned for that next week. Zennon, once again, thank you for stopping in. You outdressed me today.
Sorry.
Oh, man, you make it look good. All right, until next week, though, I'm Jameson.
I'm Zennon.
Have a good one.